Hello, my name is Macro, and this is a simple guide designed to familiarize BWC members with the M136 anti-tank launcher implemented into the game by the RHS mod. On the side of the launcher in front, you can see the simple guideline how to aim the tube based on the target's movement speed. If it's standing still, you use the center notch. If it's moving slowly, you put the target in between the center and the side notch, and then you fire. If it's moving fast, you use the side notch. This is accurate up to 200 meters. I have not tested it further, and I doubt you'd be using the AT4 or the M136 as it's otherwise known. It ranges past 200 meters. It does range up to 400, as you can see here, with a simple adjustment. But at that point, it gets tricky to hit moving targets, and if it's stationary, you just adjust the range and use the center side to fire. That BMP-1 is at 200 meters exactly. I know that because I have this thing. As you can see, laser designator, exactly 200 meters out. The other way I can know it if I don't have a laser designator is if I align the bottom of the sight with the exact bottom of the tracks, the center notch, the top of the center notch will be at the point where the tracks end and the side of the hull begins. This is handy for quick ranging in a condition where you don't have time to use other tools. The sight can be closed or opened. This is adjusted in your RHS game options. The optic interaction key, which for me is this, and this is a default ArmA optics mode key, is what changes the sight. As you can see, it's ranged for 200 meters, and if I fire, I hit the target, and the vehicle is disabled. And it explodes. I've now procured another launcher. These are one use only. Once you fire them, they're useless, and you can drop them right there. By default, they're unloaded. Once you switch to them, they will automatically load a missile in. At this point, the launcher is ready to fire. The rocket itself does not take any space, although sometimes it is created as a phantom rocket in your inventory. If you see a rocket in your inventory while another one is already loaded, you can safely drop it. It is a bug. I'm in the same spot. The only difference is the BMP-1 is now moving. I aim with the leftmost notch, and I hit it dead on, and it is now taken out. This is the way you should be aiming at 200 meters at a vehicle that is going at full speed, or rather normal speed. For the BMP-1 at 100 meters, if you line up the bottom of the sight with the bottom of the tracks, the top of the middle notch should be covering the wheel and ending at the top of the wheel. For 200 meters, as I said, it comes up to the top of the tracks, and for 300 meters, it should be at the level of the top of the turret. For a BMP-1 that's facing you, line up the bottom of the sight with the top of the tracks, and the top of the middle notch should be exactly at the line where the lower glacis meets the top. For 200 meters, your top notch would be at the same point if you line up the bottom of the sight with the bottom of the tracks. And for 300, if you line up the bottom of the sight with the bottom of the tracks, the top notch should be at the level of the top of the vehicle's turret. For BTRs, if you line up the bottom of the sight with the bottom of the hull, the notch would end basically right at the top of the hull for 100 meters. For 200 meters, same, but it will now end at the top of the turret. And for 300, if you line it up with the bottom of the wheels, it will end at the top of the hull. Dead on. Haven't switched out the launcher for a new one and the BTR-60s with BTR-70s because they're easier to demonstrate on. Although this does work with BTR-60s and 80s as well. I'll now show you how to range those with BTRs facing you at 100, 200, and 300 meters as usual. For 100 meters, if you line up the bottom of the sight with the bottom of the hull, ignoring this bit, the top of your center notch should be exactly at this line where the lower glacis and the top glacis form this sort of a beak. For 200 meters, when you line up with the same spot, your top of the notch should be at the top of the hull. And for 300 meters, same, but you need to line up with the bottom of the wheels. Another nice feature of the M136 is its variety of 3 different rounds. Heat, explosive anti-tank, HB, high penetration, and HEDP, explosive dual purpose. All 3 rounds can be used against vehicles, with the former 2 being the most effective. HB has the highest penetration of them all, but heat can for the most part do its job rather well, at least in ArmA. HEDP can have some issues penetrating armor, but it actually has area of effect, or a splash radius, which the other 2 do not. So it's best used against clusters of infantry and buildings. This is the fire team in a wedge formation at 200 meters. I fire at the middle of the formation, and they're all dead. Heat works very well even against heavily armored targets, although HB will do its job better. This is a T-72 Russian MBT of the RHS variety. If you use this weapon against Cup or vanilla ArmA 3 vehicles, its effectiveness will be lowered drastically, as those use a completely different armor system. So this test only holds true against RHS vehicles. Firing at the front, you can see that it was a hit, but the vehicle is still there. It has not exploded. I will now repeat the test with the high penetration warhead. It was a hit, and the vehicle explodes. It largely depends on where exactly you hit the vehicle. The turret may be sturdier in some cases, so it's recommended to aim for the lower hull from the front. Sometimes heat will yield the same result, but not all the time, which is why HP is more reliable in this regard. However, heat is just fine for anything that is lower than an MBT. On a finishing note, I want to showcase a long shot. The M136 does scale up to 400 meters, but at that point it gets really tricky to hit anything. This is a BTR-70 at exactly 400 meters. I know that because I used a rangefinder to place it exactly there. You can tell that by lining up your sight just like that, with the bottom of the sight being at the bottom of the wheels. The top of the middle notch should be just at the top of the turret. The weapon is ranged for 400 meters, and I aim a little bit higher just in case. I fire, and it's a hit. As you can see, it is relatively simple to hit stationary targets, even at this kind of range. But if it was moving, probably not. With this, I'd like to end this guide, and thank you for your attention.